Get this city council meeting started tonight. It's May 20th, 2025, and we're down at the mill. We are also going to publish this later on our YouTube channel for viewing. And with that, I would call the meeting to order and ask all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. It's good to see everybody here today. It's a little rainy out there. Let's go ahead and kick off with a roll call. We're Clerk Keller.
Councilmember Daughtry.
Present.
Councilmember Peters Hagen.
Present.
Councilmember Donahue.
Present.
Councilmember Shipman. Present. Councilmember Jorstad. Here. Councilmember Ewing.
Present.
Councilmember Tajin.
Present.
Great. Good to see everybody here. We're gonna do approval of the agenda, but I want to check real quick. Anya, are we doing the FTO? We are not. Okay, so if we could get an approval of the agenda and strike 11A.
So my understanding, we're also adding one item under the executive session. It's regarding potential litigation and there will be no action to follow.
Okay, is that correct? Okay, so that's your agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda with the noted amendments.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, Mr. Mayor, you have an agenda.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and do guest business. And Sarah, you have a couple of great employees to intro.
Right, Bernie, you can call it. All right, awesome. The first employee that I'm introducing tonight is Vernica Dees. Vernica is a dedicated public servant with a background in public administration, grant management, and student success. She joined the city just over 1 month ago as the Revenue Development Specialist, where she plans to support community-centered programs through strategic funding and partnerships. She's held many roles in higher education, public health, law enforcement, and brings a well-rounded perspective to her work here to the city. Originally from Chicago, she recently moved to Washington from California to continue her commitment to public service. She enjoys singing. She was even president of her university choir. She loves exploring new places, especially when good food is involved, and is a bit of a science nerd with a bachelor's in chemistry and a lifelong curiosity about how things work. She's passionate about community engagement, lifting others up, and creating inclusive spaces wherever she goes. And we have her busy researching grants, finding revenue opportunities, and analyzing everything with the department currently. Welcome, Vernica.
Great, great. Welcome.
Yeah, it needs to come with.
All right, the second employee I'm introducing tonight is Franco. Franco joined the Parks Department as a parks maintenance worker 3 months ago. Prior to working for the city of Lake Stevens, he was an arborist climber for about 8 years. The highest tree he ever climbed was over 100 foot tall. He has 1 dog and 2 cats. In his free time, he enjoys being outdoors, working in gardens. His favorite food is a cheeseburger, but hold the pickles if you ever buy him one. His dream vacation would be to visit Egypt and see the Great Pyramids. He can skip a rock 16 times, and he's scared of horses. Please welcome Franco.
Oh, yeah.
All right, great. Appreciate the new employees and we look forward to their success at the city. We're going to move into citizens' comments. We have several folks in person, which is great. But I want to first check to see if there's anybody online who wants to provide citizens comment.
I have one person online, so if you would like to speak to the council and you're on our Zoom meeting, if you can raise your digital hand, I can let you into the meeting. I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, great. Perfect. Then we'll go in person here. We're gonna keep comments to 3 minutes since we have so many. And we want to be able to hear everybody. So with that, let's start with Brenda. Is it Tyken? Tyken? Brenda? If you would just go to the podium, state your name, address, and 3 minutes will start.
I'd rather go after Ray.
You what?
I'd rather go after Ray.
Oh, you want to go after Ray? Well, I think I'm going to keep everyone to 3. Just because there's somebody. Brenda, I love your negotiation style.
Okay, so I didn't mean to take time away from Ray, but I'm here to talk about the project y'all got going on 116, 117. As I stated to one congressman person here, it's the most asinine project this city has ever done, ever. Okay, y'all invested a lot of money into this park. Beautiful. So invest some money into the sidewalk that you've already got funding for on 117th. You've already got property on the east side of 116th that is already designated for a walkway. I don't know what year it happened, but I do know that every single piece of property on the east side of 116th has got enough width for a vehicle to park. It's big enough for a walkway. Instead of giving up half a road. I'm sorry, is my 3 minutes up?
The timer's right here.
Okay, so I have seen cars doing slalom down the road through the poles, having a blast. The speeding has not slowed down. If anything, it has picked up. The amount of people walking in the walkway is not worth the headache that is giving to not just the people who live on those 2 streets, but the people that have to go around them. I've lived pretty much my entire life on that road. And I'm really glad that my dad's not here today, because he wouldn't be as calm as I am right now. This is ridiculous. Please do not let this go through. Find a way to make the sidewalks work. Please.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
We'll go with Ray next.
Hey, my name is Ray Welk. I live on 117th. And can I turn this a little bit? Because actually I'd like to talk to these people as well, because there's information that I'd like them to know that I haven't been able to share. So am I on the clock already? Okay. So what I have here is I've gone up and down the street, 116th, 117th, and I have a survey that I took. I've got 80 something signatures. I've got 80. Well, before I left home, I had 85. I got a couple more signatures here. So I've got 85 signatures, 3 on those streets in favor, 82 opposed. If you go out beyond, there's a few more people that have signed also, but the percentage is greater out where they don't live on the street. They're in favor of the walkway, but they don't necessarily like the one-way. So a couple things that I want to read here. The city guys have traffic counters out now. They've put them up. I think Thursday. And prior to that, I'm watching it. And it's like nobody's counting cars. So here I am sitting in my driveway counting cars. And I will invite each and every one of you to come down, sit in my driveway tomorrow morning from 7:15 to 8:15. 2010 117th Avenue Northeast. Come and watch the cars going to the high school. Thursday, from 7:15 to 8:15, 324 vehicles northbound on 117th. 4 adults walking southbound, 2 children and 2 other children, 2 walking children, 2 on bikes. Friday, 315 vehicles northbound, 1 adult walking southbound, same 2 children on bikes, same 2 walking. This morning, I wasn't able to do it yesterday. This morning, 345 vehicles northbound, 2 adults walking southbound, same kids on bikes. And I've got some video that I wanted to show what you guys have done. There's a walkway on the east side of 117th, goes up to the church. And the kids used to walk on that side. Now you've moved them over to the west side, and they're all kids that are going to the middle school. So they're over here and they're having to cross those 345 vehicles. One girl this morning, and I have a video, 9 cars and a school bus passed by her before somebody stopped to let her cross. And the same happened with the other kids. So also I gotta pick what I want to read.
Mayor, we're at 3 minutes. and
That's
50
good.
seconds.
Take 2
Okay.
more, Ray.
Okay.
Okay, so the combined length of the road on 116th and 117th is 0.8 of a mile. So what you guys have done is you've taken almost a mile of road out of service when in fact we need roads. And you guys' charts from February, if you average that out between 116th and 117th, there were 353 northbound vehicle trips from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., which pretty much matches what I've counted here. So if you do the math on that, that's like a car every 10.1 seconds. Yesterday, or Friday rather, between 7:45 and 7:50, there were 46 vehicles in 5 minutes. That's down to like 6 seconds apart. So it's just too much. And like was already said, I don't know if I'm watching closer now. I don't think anybody's slowed down. If anything, they're going faster. And your car counters that Ben has put up on 117th and 116th, they're in the wrong place because there needs to be one down on the south end of 117th because cars are going up to 22nd and they're turning right going down to the middle school. Yes, there's cars coming up westbound on 22nd that are turning right, but I really believe the greater number is going east towards the middle school. And also, if I understand this right, the car counters, whatever you call this device, has 2 cords going across the road. So it measures the speed of the vehicle. Am I correct? Do you know?
Mayor, we're at 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, just wrap up for me.
Okay, so where that's placed up there, it's close to the stop sign and the traffic backs up all the way to Ebenezer Church. So you're not getting an accurate reading because the cars are creeping one at a time to go through the 4-way stop. They're screaming by my house. And like I said, come down tomorrow and sit with me and we'll count. And you can see what's really going on. So I have more that I'd like to say, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Let's go with Sandy. And is it, I don't know, Douse? Is that right? Did I say that right? Douse?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I wasn't going to speak today, but I decided to. I knew that Ray would do such a great job. But I wanted to say, I live on 117th. I live just maybe 2 houses in from 20th. And I work from home. I sit at my desk, which faces the road. So I have a clear view of the amount of traffic that's going by, the speeds that people are going by. I mean, I'm 2 houses from the corner, and by the time they hit my house, they're already going noticeably over 25 sometimes. I don't know how fast they're going. But I wanted to say, I don't have the stats that Ray does, but I have my observations. I don't think that the situation as far as safety of pedestrians is going to be enhanced by this, because if you put those little armadillos down, somebody comes flying down there at 45 miles an hour, and my little kid is there, and they maybe step out of the line a little bit. My child is not going to be safe. Those little armadillos are not going to do any good. I think that the issue of the speed needs to be addressed. There has been a little more walkers on the road, but I think that would also happen if there were sidewalks. And I think they're safer, and I think that if you don't address the speed issues on those 2 roads, it isn't gonna matter. It's still not safe for the students and the bikers and the walkers, and those of us who live on the road and try to get out there, back out onto that street without getting rear-ended or broadsided. So, I think that's everything I had to say. I want to thank Ray. He's worked really hard on this and has done an excellent job of presenting our issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Next to be.
So I wanted to say, first of all, I appreciate this building's really nice and the new dog park's really nice, and it's really nice to see nice things in our city. I've lived here 38 years. But I think that I was promised sidewalks like 37 years ago, so I don't know what's happened. So I would like to see sidewalks. I also gathered a couple of signatures, and I've gathered signatures outside of the one-way street areas, and I will echo what Ray said. People that like this, they like the walkways, they don't like the one-way streets. And I've noticed that, I live on the east side of 117th. So now I have to cross the street every day to get my mail. I have to cross the street to put my garbage cans out. There's no crosswalks for people to cross. And it's very difficult to cross now due to the traffic. I've noticed a lot of traffic is being diverted onto the streets that are more residential. Because if you're driving on 117th, which has already been mentioned, people are turning the first right. If you're driving down south on 116th, people are turning the first right. Those neighborhoods have sidewalks, but they're much quieter. And I walk my dog all over Lake Stevens, and those neighborhoods feel like safer to walk, of course, because 117th is almost like a freeway nowadays. And people do drive very fast. People are cutting over to the walkway to get around. They're frustrated. Also, if you're on 20th and you want to cross 117th, it's really difficult even before, because people take that corner off of 20th onto 117th very fast. And it's going to be even worse now because there's more traffic coming north. Let's see. Having those one-way streets right there between the 2 schools, to me, don't make any sense, because kids are having to go both ways. From the neighborhoods over here to get to the middle school and vice versa. And I think it's dangerous. There's, like I said, no crosswalks.
Yeah, Billy, just take a second to wrap up.
Well, I kind of just want to make sure that I think I pretty much covered what I had to say. I did notice though, when I was driving north on 117th to get here, there's a detour when you turn on 26, there's a detour, takes you around the neighborhood. And now the detour is taking people onto 123rd, which is right behind the middle school where the baseball fields are. That doesn't make sense to me, you know, to divert more traffic by a middle school. It just doesn't make sense. So I hope that you will build sidewalks and this new person that can write grants, she can do a great job, I bet, in getting some grant money for the city of Lake Stevens. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate your words. Yeah, I've got Brian and Stacy Collins who wants to go first. All right.
My name is Brian Collins. Me and my wife live on 116th. We recently purchased a home about 6 months ago. And let me just start off by saying this was a very hard fought, me and my generation and things just being harder to purchase a home seems such a lofty goal. And it took us about 10 years to save. And we do feel like a little bit like the rug was pulled out from underneath us, unfortunately, having 116th turned into a one-way and that the limiting factors that does. When we purchased this home, we loved the idea of how close it was to the schools. We have 2 children at elementary school and we have 1 at the high school. And we love to walk up, see the games and be a part of this community. We're proud to be here. We worked really hard to get here. When I stand before you today to express concern over the proposal to turn 116th and 117th into one-way streets, while I understand the intention behind this, improving walkability, optimizing space, possibly slowing traffic, I urge you to reconsider this. I feel that the negatives outweigh the positives. First and foremost, the one-way road may seem efficient on paper in residential areas, but I feel they often create more problems than they solve, disrupting the flow of natural traffic, forcing residents to take longer, less intuitive routes to get home. I know I take 1/12 now to get to my house, and I feel like that disrupts that community or that area. More importantly, I feel like the intent was to slow speeds down. I feel that it's done the opposite. And the limited time that I have when I'm at home, I feel like the cars that go by are quite a bit faster. And I believe that's a real concern. And 3 times, I don't work from home. I work at Boeing and in the times where I am home, I've seen 3 cars actually driving up the one-way road in the pedestrian lane. And I love to ride bikes with my kids. That's the one thing I dream of when I get home is being able to take my kids out for bike rides. Additionally, something I haven't considered until just recently was the emergency response times to my house. I feel like one-way road may limit fire trucks and ambulances and police facing delays, and that could be a significant amount. The diversion forces us to go about 4 minutes out of the way, and that can be, my father was the fire chief of Snohomish for 30 years, and that I've seen those things, how they can change that limited amount of time getting to a life-saving incident. So I appreciate the desire of this council to increase the walkability, to increase the enjoyment of our neighborhoods. But I don't feel that this does it in a way that increases, I guess I should conclude by saying it makes our home feel a little more frustrating, a little more inconvenient. And I appreciate the council's attention to this matter.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm more of a reader, so I won't make a lot of my comments. My name is Stacy Collins. We live on 116th, as stated. I'm here to respectfully speak against the decision to maintain 116th and 117th as one-way streets. Not just because of the inconveniences caused for residents like myself, but due to the broader and more pressing issue of public safety. When we purchased our home, we were drawn to the quiet charm of the neighborhood. Aside from the usual school traffic, it was peaceful and a safe street perfect for raising our children. Since the implementation of the one-way system, however, that sense of safety has been upended. Traffic on our street has noticeably increased both during the day and at night. Unfortunately, many of these drivers are speeding, going well above the speed limit. What's even more concerning is the so-called safe pedestrian path is not being respected. I have personally witnessed cars using the pedestrian side of the road to pass slower vehicles or garbage trucks. Just this morning, I had to intervene when a driver drove up the pedestrian side while my children were waiting for the school bus. Thankfully, I was standing there. I stepped out in front of him and told him to turn around, and he did. This isn't just the 116th issue. The effects are rippling out into the neighborhood, the neighboring streets like 112th and 114th. These streets are now being used as detours by drivers trying to avoid the one-way restrictions. I regularly use these streets myself, and I've observed firsthand the increase in traffic. 114th in particular lacks sidewalks and is windy, and the added volume of cars, many of them speeding, puts pedestrians at risk on their street as well. This isn't just sorry. On Friday, I was returning home at the same time school was letting out on 114th. I had a near miss speeding with a speeding student who came around the corner in the middle of the road. I strongly believe this behavior stems from attempts to bypass the congestion caused by the one-way setup, and it will only get worse. They are backed up on our street all the way to our house, which is at 203rd, which is almost the 25th. So they're from the stop sign all the way to our house, backed up after high school lets out. I urge the city to consider alternatives and truly prioritize the safety of all people. Lowering the speed limit to 20 miles an hour, put traffic cameras up, increase police presence during school hours, add proper sidewalks are all steps that could help. But most importantly, I ask you to reconsider the one-way configuration on these roads. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate everyone's comments and especially coming in and participating tonight. It's great to see so many people here. Let's move to council business. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, go ahead and start. Yes, go ahead and start with Councilmember Daughtry.
Well, I'm going to continue the conversation about 116th and 117th. How's that? I've been driving 117th, 116th now for 2 months, every day, because I'm working over by the high school. And I have witnessed all the same things that you guys just discussed, although I will say that it actually, because I'm driving a van, it made me slow down. Because one day I hit my mirror, that was fun. Hit a mailbox, and took my mirror out. Or I actually just folded it in, didn't break it. But I have noticed that there is very few walkers and bikers. However, I have stopped and talked to them when I'm on the road and don't have to go behind me. I say, hey, how do you like this? They all like the walking, but they don't like the one way. So everything you guys have said, I've heard firsthand from people that I have talked to out there and going about. The other thing that I want to bring up is you talked about waste management and the mail. I got caught behind waste management this morning. It took me 12 minutes to go from 20th Street up to where the high school is. 12 minutes sitting behind waste management. So that added to my commute time. The other thing that happened was with the mailbox. The mail guy I saw had a bunch of cars behind him and he pulled into the walk lane to let everybody by. So that's not good. So I get what you're saying, and we're looking at doing this because we are looking at alternatives. And this was an alternative. I'm not saying that it's going to work. I'm not saying that it's going to go that way. But you have done is come in and given us your personal observations, your personal opinions about what's going on, and that's what we need. So thank you for coming and sharing with us. And I'm looking at the same stuff you are because I'm out there every day on those two roads. So thanks. I appreciate you.
Hey, Councilmember Peter Sagan.
I would echo pretty much everything that Councilmember Daughtry has said. I've been up there 3-4 times. Unfortunately, I've never seen anybody walking in the walkway. But I would agree the speeding issue is a major concern. So and not to be repetitive, but do agree with Councilmember Daughtry and appreciate your comments. So what time again, Ray?
7:15.
7:15. Okay, I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm going by there every day that time, same time.
And then if you would like after school, go ahead and come on over to 116.
Yep.
And you can sit in my driveway, 2204 116. And you can see what it's like after they let out of school.
2204.
Yep,
Okay,
or
thank-
2208.
She's got a Subaru, a 2014 Subaru.
Is
Isn't that right, Brenda?
You're a car guy.
We'll see you tomorrow. With that, I would like to comment a little bit, as we had some council members and the mayor, a couple of staff back in Washington DC with the goal of, trying to get some of the money that we send back that way to come back this way. It was interesting to hear one senator's positive comments, which I was totally surprised by. As you hear in the news media, there seems to be a very divided opinion as to what's going on. And it was refreshing to hear a senator actually saying, it is what it is. We need to work with it. So that was positive. It was also interesting to hear the executive from the Aerospace Alliance and his comments regarding tariffs. I don't get it, but anyway, it's just interesting the different opinions that you hear back there. The one thing that did come out of this meeting that we had, we met with Senators Murray, Cantwell, Representatives Rick Larson, Susan Del Bene, and Kim Schreier, I believe. The issue of the trestle, and I would urge the mayor to up this, I guess, in the sense of getting Marysville, Arlington, Snohomish, Monroe, Everett, Sultan, Skykomish, Goldboro, even possibly the owners of Stevens Pass Ski Resort on board. As Senator Cantwell said, we need a coalition of people to drive this forward on the trestle. And we have spent, I've been on the council for 8.5 years. We talked about every year, and it just doesn't seem to get the attention that is needed. So I would urge the mayor to promote that, I guess, and hopefully jumpstart it. Doesn't seem to be getting any action from any other communities. So I would ask you to move forward with that. Second to that, I would also encourage that we reach out to Arlington and Marysville regarding Highway 9. We have some significant transportation problems. The activity that's taking place up at Soper Hill Road, if anybody goes up there that way in the daytime, wow. We've got a lot of residential units coming on play. The commercial activity on the Marysville side is just starting, and it's like, holy cow. So anyway, I look forward to participating. I hope we can kind of move the ball forward in that regard. So thank you.
Councilmember Shipman.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming in and sharing their experience. I received some emails in regards to this project, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear from the people that live on the streets. We want to hear from the people that drive on them that maybe don't live on them. We do want your feedback. So thank you for taking time out of your evening. I know everybody's busy, and we appreciate you coming in. I also spent last week in Washington, DC. And I agree with everything Gary said. It was interesting to hear different opinions from different government members, I guess, because we listened to a lot, both senators and several of our representatives. I will say Senator Cantwell had very optimistic things to say about Snohomish County and some of the businesses and the challenges that Snohomish County as a whole we're going to face with housing as well as traffic with a lot of the new business starts here. And she emphasized not just north and south, which of course we all know I-5 is a parking lot, but that we have a big east-west challenge, and I-90 is reaching capacity. So Highway 2 actually affects more than just those of us east of the trestle. It is the main thoroughfare to the east side of the state, with the exception of I-90. So I was encouraged that they were taking it seriously, but of course they did last year too, and we've not seen a lot of movement. One of the things she pointed out that stuck out to me was when they're looking at financing different road projects, they can finance 10 different projects or take all that money and throw it at the trestle. That's how big of a project it is. Our mayor suggested an alternative that I felt she actually heard, which I know has been suggested before, which is prior to taking that bridge apart, which they're anticipating to take 7 years, which we all know means it's going to be at least 15. During that time, there'll be lane closures. It would not surprise me if they closed the bridge completely and made the other one 2 ways. I mean, we've all seen how construction works on bridges. This particular bridge goes over the Snohomish River, the EB Island Slough, and wetlands. I can only imagine the environmental studies that are going to be required to not only the studies be done, but what needs to be done as of a result of them. So what are we going to do with all that traffic for over a decade? Because I have no doubt it will be that long. So the mayor suggested putting in an alternative route straight across from, if I understood right, the Boyne Freeway. This would take time to build as well, but it wouldn't be an elevated bridge over protected areas. So, and I feel like that was heard and that was encouraging. And we were talking to Senator Cantwell about it. And when you talk to her and she's thinking, she does this. And she considered it and said, that's something to consider. So I want you to know we are, looking and voicing everyone's concerns in regards to the trestle and the impact that has on all of us over here. It's a challenge for our state. We don't know how it's going to get funded, but we do have representatives that are voicing concern and helping us out. Representative Del Bene reached out to us before we even got home regarding one of our road projects that we need help financing. And so this was a trip, I think, very worthwhile. I think it makes a difference when you travel to DC and you meet with your representatives and you have a conversation versus simply sending a request, over email or snail mail. I think this was a very worthwhile trip and I think we need some headways. But as you know, nothing in government is lightning speed. And that's about it.
Okay, Councilmember Dorset.
Thank you. I don't want to be redundant. Many of the same things that others have said. I think Councilmember Shipman, you just said that, having those in-person conversations matter. I want to, again, take a moment to thank each of you for being here. Public comment matters. It's really important that we see your faces and we hear your voices and really, really appreciate and realize that you all have lives and other things you could and would and want to be doing. And being here tonight makes a difference. And so just really want to extend my thanks to each of you for being here and for being willing to speak up. I also just want to say that I was pleasantly surprised to go back to DC and come back feeling hopeful. So let's cross our fingers and hope that we keep moving forward. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Ewing.
I'm going to start with the local stuff. So I just want to thank Brenda, Ray, Sandy, Billy, Brian, and Stacy for each of you. I talked to all of you, I think, but Billy in person when I walked through your neighborhood. And so I asked specifically that you be respectful. And I think you're already respectful as it is. I just really appreciate the input that you shared. I'm grateful to be a part of a community with smart, thoughtful, capable people who care. And so I just appreciate that because too often when there's a passion issue, people come in and they are disrespectful. And you guys just owned it. And so thank you for sharing that. Ray, your survey is very similar to the one that I did myself. And so the numbers are almost a smaller sample size, but almost identical outcomes. And so thank you for sharing those numbers with us. With regard to DC, I'm just really grateful that we had the in-person meetings. And I wish you could see the kind of respect that our mayor garners from the highest people in government. We sat with Senator Cantwell and the mayor spoke for the bulk of the 30 minutes that we had, and it was a dialogue. And I said, but Senator Cantwell was extremely attentive to everything that the mayor said. And so I just feel grateful to be a member of this community that has a mayor that commands that kind of respect from a very significant, powerful woman in our government leadership. I don't think I've ever walked away from a meeting with a politician where I felt like so hopeful. She was the least partisan of any of the people that we met with. She said, I don't care who's in office. She said, my job is to get work done. And so here's just a couple things that she was bullish on Snohomish County. Specifically, while we were there, the Boeing had the largest contract that was in the history of its company. Their stock is up 50% this past year. That contract is worth 400,000 jobs in our community. Boeing is the single largest employer in Snohomish County in the area. So having a strong, vibrant, I know there's at least 2 Boeing employees here tonight. But the other thing too is we need energy to be able to power AI. And so we have the 3 most promising fusion companies in the world that are in Everett, Washington, one of which has signed a contract with Halion to produce energy for a data center. And half the world's satellites are built in Redmond, Washington. So I'm grateful to have been there. Our council members and the city staff just an outstanding job of representing ourselves before those elected officials. And I feel like we are getting some traction. So I'm grateful most specifically to Senator Cantwell for her focus on getting the work done and not being bogged down into partisan dialogue and just getting the work done.
Hey, Councilmember Tagin.
Feel like it's going to be a lot of the same here. Thanks for showing up, everybody. I have a good friend who lives on 117th and he's been burning my phone up as well. So it's not just you guys. I've got some friends out there too who are very, very frustrated. So it's very much fallen on my ears quite a bit lately. As far as DC, I think it was a phenomenal trip. We did meet with the U.S. Department of Transportation. I thought that was a really telling story of they had a backlog of 3,500, I think, outstanding money that needs to go out, and they're already gone through 13% of those in the first 100 days. So they had to put all new people in place, and then they've been working their way through. They were very positive and bullish about what the administration can do and how they're going to try to streamline that, and that could work out very big. I will say, like everyone else, Senator Cantwell had wrote a bill for mega projects, and she said she had really earmarked that for the trestle. And that's the reason she wrote that several years ago with that in mind for mega projects, which she considered our project here and the one down south as mega projects, and hopefully be able to get that funding to come through. So to hear her say that, and then on top have the U.S. Department of Transportation working so hard and have a great conversation with us, even though they're just all brand new in office, that was really encouraging. And then we were there with the Economic Alliance Commission and had some great talks with Rick Larson and heard a lot of great information on him. I will say some of it was a little bullish, or excuse me, not so bullish, but at the same time, there's people who are rolling up their sleeves saying, let's get some stuff done. And I think that's what we've said is we just want to get our projects out there. So, and I think it was really clear that they said, you know, it can't just be Lake Stevens knocking on our door. You need to have Everett, you need to have everyone else, as Peter Sagan has mentioned. So I think that coalition will very much make a dent in their side to help us get this project moving along. But we also presented other projects in the community as well, because there's a lot of need for parks and other information and bridges. So I really think it was a productive trip, and they all took our information and they're going to see how they can help. So that's what we're back there doing for you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, so to close it out, I will echo thanks, for taking the time to be here. And I'll go a little off book here. So normally when we're setting our agendas for the meetings, they're very fluid. They're usually not finalized until the week of. But I do want to let the people in this room know that tentatively, and I cannot stress that enough, tentatively, we're going to be going over the results of the pilot project on June 17th at our workshop meeting. that is highly subject to change. So I strongly advise you to check the meeting agenda. Usually comes out at the end of the week prior, just to confirm that that's on there. But that is currently the plan. So I thought that would be information that everyone here would want to know. Also, I want to do something a little different in that normally our council business portion of the meeting is us giving reports and kind of updating on what we've done. I'd like to try and make it a little more proactive, and that I'd like to use this time to solicit any topics that the council would like on the agendas going forward. We've kind of talked quite a bit tonight, rightly so. So we don't have to go into that tonight, but future meetings, I'd like to use this time for anyone to suggest topics or have discussions about whether we need to add them to the agenda going forward. So that's it from me. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was I thought it was a fairly fruitful trip back to DC. One of the meetings that wasn't discussed that we had a great opportunity to sit down. The White House under President Trump has the Intergovernmental Affairs Office, and they were really interesting to talk to get the White House perspective on what's going on in our country, and then compare and contrast that to some of the other things we were hearing. I agree. It was refreshing to hear Senator Cantwell and her words of wisdom for us. I don't have a problem stoking back up the coalition to get the trestle back on board, and I think it's a bigger picture discussion rather than just the trestle, but really east-west traffic through the county. That's got to include 522, and it has to include all the way to the pass, the trestle, and what I think is a great idea, which is extending 526 to 9 across the valley floor. But I think that's getting the right partners and the right coalition together to have that discussion and prioritize those different east-west opportunities, and then just really start knocking doors and not taking no for an answer on it. But because it's a problem we all deal with every day in our community, and we've got to get that fixed. And flying taxis are coming, but probably not soon enough. So with that, I will not take up any more time. Let's move forward on the agenda. We don't have any city department reports. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion to pass the consent agenda and a second. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, we're going to move into action item 11B, Cavallaro Park acquisition. This is an exciting topic.
Thank you. Let me take a minute and share my screen. Okay, I found it. Sorry for the delay. Good evening, Council. Sarah Garso, Parks and Recreation Department. On my screen, I have a short presentation to go along with the staff report that I put together and subsequent emails that were sent out. One of the things I want to note immediately that was brought to my attention is that the draft agreement that you have in front of you is a very fast draft. It was turned over in less than one business day by the county. It has not been reviewed by city staff nor legal. We already see edits that need to be made. First and foremost, it does say Lake Stevens Community Ball Field. This one specifically is for Cavallaro. I've confirmed the tax lots and much of the other information is accurate. It's just to give you an idea of what an agreement would look like if we were to transfer property from county to city. We would still need to modify it quite a bit. So thank you for your patience on those misprints. All right, as a site overview of Cavallaro, just want to make sure that everybody watching this meeting and is here tonight understands what Cavallaro Park is made up of. It does have a total of 7 parcels, and the park constitutes a total of 35 acres. Much of that is undeveloped. About 8.5 would be able to be developed in the near future without being in wetlands, critical areas, or other parcels that are developed. What is on site currently is 3.25 acres, which is an off-leash dog park. There's actually two sections of that. An 18,000 square foot skate park, which is heavily used by the public. At the time of making the slides, it was a 4,400 square foot playground. I do know the county had, I believe, 3 separate items that they had to shut down and remove from the site. I believe at this time they're all removed. That was for safety. Upon an audit of distance between the equipment and also aging of equipment, some of those had to be removed. It has 1 basketball court currently, as well as 47 parking stalls. It is in close proximity to one of the schools that has ample amount of parking for walking distance at this time. Potential acquisition, this particular park was actually annexed into city limits back in 2009. There's provisions with the county that as parks come into city limits, they have discussions with the city about going ahead and passing ownership and management. Cities, as they grow, have a lot more people go to the parks and use them more frequently, and they need to be maintained at a higher frequency. The county does their best to maintain this location, but we know that their staff is only able to respond to this location once or twice a week. And they are considerations. We get a lot of calls from the public thinking it's our park, asking us to respond. We work very well with the county to pass those along. One of the things the city would need to do upon acquiring it would be increase the level of service. How we would propose to do that immediately is with routine cleanings. In the summer, our staff clean parks 1 or 2 times a day. North Cove can get up to 3 cleanings per day, depending on the use. We would add trash cans to help facilitate trash at the facility. And we would hope to minimize response time for graffiti and vandalism. Other than that, immediately the park would stay as is. The park also has the opportunity for future development, whether it be specific recreational amenities or lots of opportunities to develop those additional parcels. I do want to point out that we did bring this topic to the Parks and Recreation Planning Board on May 12th, and they recommended that the council acquire the property in the future. During our discussion, the future could be anywhere between 2 months to 2 years. We don't know the time frame. We did tell them we've talked to council, but at the time we didn't have it as an action item, and we're still waiting for information from the county. If we were to acquire Cavallero, there are some immediate needs that would need to take place. The annual operating cost per year would be $62,500. That's our estimate based on all of our maintenance crunching, walking the property, taking notes of everything that needs to be done. As we are already halfway through the year, that number, of course, would be reduced to half for year 1. Equipment cost of about $20,000 to buy things like mowers and equipment to take care of the property. We estimate a half-time equivalent of a full-time maintenance worker, so 20 hours a week for taking care of cleanings, cutting the grass, and responding to maintenance needs. And then future costs would be determined once we get to master planning, look at future development and what that will cost the city. We are, of course, going into our pros plan this year, which will give us a great view of the city as a whole, what the community needs and the gaps of service with our current parks and programs. The next 2 maps you're going to see on the slide just talk about the makeup of the different tax parcels and the current development of them, as well as restrictions due to funding of how the parcels were acquired. The next screen helps also point these out. Just to let you know that some of these do have REIT and neighborhood dollars on them, which is the yellow portions. All of that is unrestricted. The funding that was taken to get these lands as part of the park, it does not restrict any future development for them. The Conservation Futures Grant does have some restrictions that come with it, and I can see my screen might be a little cut off, so I apologize for that. The Conservation Futures Grant limits the areas to be outdoor public recreation. What that means is you can't put a retail building on it or build a facility that would be locked for the public using it on a regular basis. They're meant to be outdoor public locations. And then the red area has what we call a state commerce grant. It does expire in 2029. What that grant says is the amenities within this, specifically the skate park, have to stay there until a minimum of 2029. I will be clear, I'm not proposing to get rid of the skate park, but that is the restriction that comes with the land, just so that you know that that is on the books. That is my short presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, have council discuss. I do have a suggested action if the city does wish to move forward with acquisition. It would be to authorize the mayor to coordinate the transfer of ownership. So we would have to look at what that date is. We would have to look at signs, rules, getting everything posted and have an action plan for that. A suggestion, I would also be asking for a consensus to move forward with the already budgeted full-time maintenance worker that is scheduled in Q3 at the retreat. We're looking at holding off right now on recruiting those, but by bringing it in, it gives us the staff for the Bayview Trail and Westlake Park that was already completed this year, and then would have that extra half-time worker for Cavallaro. And then the addition of a future 0.5 FTE that would be for when Frontier Heights is completed. Frontier Heights still hasn't gone out to bid for the public, but is anticipated shortly, just to keep you updated there. I do also have David Green, the park supervisor, online, just in case he can help answer any questions.
Any questions for Sarah?
Sarah, the need for additional equipment. So are we maxed out at capacity with the existing equipment? That was what that request would suggest to me.
Yes, and I do have a list of the equipment. David might know it off the top of his head. Otherwise, I'll have to look it up.
Yes. So great question. Thank you, David Green, Parks Field Supervisor. With our equipment now, the largest equipment request would be an additional mower, a stand-on mower, and that would allow us to run multiple mow crews. So we could have one group mowing North Cove and Lundin, while the other group is taking care of Cavallaro and Bayside, or Westlake, sorry. I was saying Bayview, Westlake. So that's the biggest part, is the larger mower. And then in that request, there's also some small tools and equipment, weed eaters, blowers. As with additional staffing, we need additional equipment.
Jerry?
I was just looking at the map. Do we have any difficulty with widening 79th due to the conflict with the Everett Water Pipeline?
Community Development Director, Russ, I believe that, absolutely. I believe that the waterline crossing was already considered when we did the first phase of 79.
Is that meaning that it was already replaced or not, or it was already?
We met the standards to do the road crossing that were in place at the time.
Okay.
So that would facilitate the further extension of 79th?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do we know if the county's gone out for any grants or anything to help fund this park before? Or since we would have it, we would go out and try to do it now, something they probably haven't been doing, but do we know if they've gone out for anything, tried to do anything more with funding or from the state, or do we know if they've tried anything?
Grants are not typically available for normal operations. So once the park is built, it is up to the county or the city to fund the daily cleanings. We do have grant money on the property, which are the restrictions that you see here. So Conservation Futures is a funding source. Department of Commerce was a funding source. They received these to both buy the property and make the park, as well as develop the skate park.
Well, originally we had planned to try to put a pump track in there. And then also there was going to be a great lawn and other things. So that wouldn't be average everyday maintenance. That would be projects.
I understand what you're saying for development. So the county does have a preferred plan, which is a master plan essentially, and it shows a covered BMX area on it. That would be fenced off whenever the organization is not actively using it. It would also, I believe, be a pay per use from my memory, but I could be wrong there. Their plan also showed along the 20th Street side, several commercial buildings, which is not allowed due to the underlying funding and restrictions you're seeing on this screen. The county would have to redo that master plan in order to start executing it. In short, the county is seeing budget cuts for their Parks Department for 3 consecutive years. They do not see an increase in staff and haven't for several years. They're continually doing more for less. This is not the property that they right now are prioritizing for development. They are working on other projects.
So I had a couple questions, excuse me, on the financial side of it. So if we're looking at, best case scenario, 2 to 3 months out, would it actually be a little lower than half for that first year?
If we come in at Q3, that would be July, which would leave 2 quarters of 4. But essentially it could be slightly less depending on the actual negotiation date for transfer.
Okay. And then the other thing I just want to make sure I'm clear on, so the equipment request, this is similar to Councilmember Ewing's question. So we're saying we need the equivalent of an extra half of a full-time person, but then $20,000 of equipment. Does that mean the equipment request is not just for this park? It will be used other places? Because half a person needing $20,000 of equipment doesn't match in my mind.
Understood. Yes, it's a capacity growing for equipment for the department. It wouldn't be a mower that we would store at this location and only use here. We use our equipment everywhere. The Parks Department hasn't purchased a large mower since we formed as a department. This would trigger the need. We're looking at how we've expanded the grass at Bayview and Westlake. Cavallero is what would tip us over with not having enough mowers to do the jobs.
Okay. Yeah, no, I want to make sure the Parks Department has the equipment they need. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what's necessary to get this park up and running versus what's best for the department overall.
I had a question about the dog park. So it's my understanding currently it's maintained by volunteers. The county is not maintaining the dog park at all. So if the city gets this park, is the city then going to be maintaining the dog park, or is that going to be still left to volunteers?
We would love to continue with volunteers. Yes, so we would reach out to the group. We would need to sign all of the city waivers and continue to manage that. There is grass outside of the dog park specifically, but I do know that the volunteers mowers do sit on site.
And we also support every once in a while with some material or in the past, we've done that gravel or sandbags kind of stuff sometimes. Any other questions for Sarah?
So again, what is the action that you're requesting?
If council wants to proceed, the suggested action is to authorize the mayor to coordinate with Snohomish County to transfer ownership. That way we could establish the date, modify the contract, and move forward there.
So I just want to thank you and the staff for looking at expanding our parks. I talk to people. That's one of the big issues that comes up. I just talked to a new family on Sunday that moved into our community. They've got 3 young children and they are asking for more parks and want to know where those are. And so it's encouraging to see that you continue to work for those parks with limited resources. So thank you.
Thank you.
I will go ahead and make the motion to authorize the mayor to coordinate with Snohomish County to transfer ownership of Caballero Hill Community Park to the city of Lakes.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Did you get the second, Kelly? Okay, perfect. Motion on the table is there any discussion on the motion?
I would just like to say that this is in keeping with something that the time is our parks and recreation in the city. That's one of our main focuses, and I totally intend on voting yes to this.
Not a half a yes?
Not half, not
hanging
a
chad.
Full yes?
fully on board with this.
I agree. And I like it's on the other side of the lake. It seems like a lot of development has been more on the north side of the lake. So I like that we're looking at a piece of property that is further south in Lake Stevens.
Yeah. All right, great. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, thank you, council. That's a great asset to bring into the city and have our ability to control the destiny on it and move forward with some more recreational space for our citizens.
Mr. Mayor, one question, if I may. Wondering if we have a consensus tonight to proceed with a consensus for recruiting and hiring the Q3 maintenance worker, or if we should bring that back in one of the future meetings?
Can I get, let's see if we can do this. Can we get a motion to begin recruiting for the one FTE parks maintenance worker that's already budgeted for Q3? Can I get a motion on that and then have a discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on that motion.
Who was the second? I apologize. I heard two voices.
I think Marcus was the
Marcus,
second.
I think Marcus beat me up.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a question for Sarah. So what's the timeline for that process? How long do you anticipate that taking?
Takes a minimum of 2 months to recruit and onboard a new staff.
Okay.
That would be start date 2 months.
Awesome.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, perfect. Thank you very much, council. Anything else while we've got them, Sarah?
No, thank you so much.
Okay, all right. Perfect. So let's move forward to some discussion items. We're going to go into 2025 budget amendment number 1. Barb. Oh, Barb is back there. I didn't see you back.
You know.
This is round.
Always got to get a dog shot.
I got to start by warming everyone up. Okay, so this is the first budget amendment of 2025. So let's jump in. So this is the budget changes for all funds. The change in beginning balance is the third column. Then we have change in revenues, expenditures, and then also ending balance. The major operating funds here are highlighted in blue. That's the general fund, the street fund, and the stormwater fund. The general fund ending balance overall decreased 1.24 million, and I'll go into that in more detail in the next slide. But the street and stormwater both increased slightly in their overall ending balances. And then the overall citywide, this amendment increases our ending fund balance by about $145,000. So that happens by increasing our beginning balance. So that was when we did the budget in 2024, what we expected our ending to be. It does include a lot of roll forwards. So you'll see that that's what the expenditures are. So we'll go into that a little bit more. So this is what I was talking about on the last slide. So as shown on the prior slide, the ending fund balance decreased in the general fund by 1.24 million. So for reporting and budgeting purposes, we can only have one general fund. And so here, all of these funds listed, the managerial reserve, permit, pandemic recovery, and commercial rentals are all rolled into one general fund. But this actually splits them out and it kind of helps to understand the changes a bit better. So when separated out, the general operating fund only decreased about 100,000, and that is mainly due to some personnel related costs. The permit fund, which is the fourth row down, permit fund we use to accumulate revenues for building permits and land use permits, and then those revenues are restricted to be used for permit operating expenses. So that sub fund ended about $1 million less ending fund balance. And that is because all of the funds that are in there are being utilized to reimburse other, whether it's staff time for the permit review, whether it's the professional services contracts for permit review. And so staff is actually much better tracking their time. We had been working on this for a number of years, trying to get all of the staff generally in the Public Works Department, they do a lot of the permit review on the stormwater side and street side and getting all of them. And so they're doing a lot better job of tracking that time. And so we're able to get it reimbursed through that permit fund. And then the final row is our commercial rental fund, and we use this fund to receipt all of the rents, all the commercial rentals that we have. And then we use the funds mainly for operating costs on those buildings and on those facilities, and then also to reimburse the part of the bond, a proportional share of the bond from purchase of that building. So the increase here is the Public Works staffing is redistributed based on that new division, the facilities division. And so they have to take care of the property, and they're going out there taking care of HVAC and doing those things. And so we have allocated parts of their salaries and benefits to that fund as well. So I do make note here that a large portion of that allocation will be redistributed to the operating fund next year when we actually move into one of those buildings, as the proportional share of commercial units will decrease. So that's the actual change in the general fund. So this is looking at your budget amendment summary overall. The highlighted line is what the amendment is now. And so you can see what our current, our beginning fund balance is at 70.1 million. I'm sorry, 70.8 million. Resources, 62.6, and then the expenditures are 91. And we know that is happening because of all the projects, all the capital projects. And our ending balance is 41.5 million. And you saw where those actually are in the budget ordinance. So revenues were reappropriating or rolling forward about 2.9 million. We're rolling forward, I think 2.9 of what we're rolling forward is for the 24th and 91st project. So that one should be closed out soon. The project's actually closed out, but we still have the invoices. We're working through negotiation of payments on that. And that revenue includes traffic impact fee credit and some investment interest. And then grants account for almost 3.7 million, and then transfers between funds is about 443. So that is where the revenues, the total 7.1 million of revenues comes from. And then expenditures, we're reappropriating and adjusting a total of 18.2 million in capital projects. Again, the 24th, 91st project, that's the infrastructure project, accounts for 14 million of that amount and has the corresponding 2.9 million in revenues. Cedarwood project, that's another large one. We'll see that one a little bit later as well. It accounts for 2.45 million and has corresponding grant funds as well. And then also we're reappropriating the property purchase funds for the Hartford Road and the Eagle Ridge property. So we have a combined placeholder in there as well. And then we are reappropriating approximately 400,000 in operating costs. So these are going to be items, projects, programs that were budgeted in 2024 that were not completed and are rolling into 2025. And then we have some adjusted operating costs of 1.3 million. Approximately 390 of that is personnel related. And then about 645 have some corresponding revenue. So that's just kind of an overall summary. And then we'll kind of go through some of the details. These are the grant revenues, some of the grant revenues I was talking about. And Director Garceau mentioned a couple of grants we have for Westlake Park and North Cove Marina. Those are grants we received in 2025. So we're adding those. And then the others, we are rolling forwards from prior year. So these are some various operational amendments. The top two rows there are items that were previously approved by council. So they had come to council and they were approved for future budget amendment. And one of those is the settlement for the tenants due to the HVAC issues. And then the other was increase in the Microsoft Copilot licenses that IT Director Stevens brought forward recently. The next two are just adjustments. One was it was a duplicated budget item, so it gets to decrease that fund, which is a good thing. And then increase in the cash out of police holiday pay. They actually cashed out more than we had anticipated last year. So we're also increasing the expected cash out for the current year. And then the remaining are all roll forward items that were budgeted and either not purchased or funds remaining on grants or donations, and just a bunch of various different things that we're just rolling forward again from last year into the current year. The last row is a decrease, and you'll see a couple of these throughout this presentation. So this actually happens when we the actual expenditure in 2024 is more than we had anticipated when we created the 2025 budget. And so with all this is doing is reducing the 2025 budget. The project amount doesn't change. The overall project, we just spent more in 2024, so there's less to spend in 2025. And so you'll see a few of those just decrease the actual project budgets throughout this. Okay, so in this presentation, I've actually condensed a number of the amendments by fund. So the top table is what you see in your packet. That is all the details. It's all of the line items. This one has 10 line items. It's basically by department. So this is every GL line item that this specific amendment is changing, which again, the majority of those are all in the general fund. And so it actually affects the general fund overall. We don't budget by department. So I hope it actually helps to condense them and make it a little bit more sense. So the table underneath the top one just condenses them by fund. So you can see what the actual overall changes for the fund. So this is actually a pretty big one. This is the statewide industrial insurance, the workers' compensation. It's estimated about $607,000 citywide, and that's $179,000 more than we had budgeted in 2025. So the cost increases were between 4% and 135%, and they're based on rates and experience factors. So the more you use L&I, the more of an experience factor that you get put on there. And so the clerical, which is generally your administrative staff, increased 4%. The field staff, which is generally your public works, parks, some of your code enforcement people, building inspectors, increased 49%. And then the police actually increased 135%. So I did put down here just a little graph that shows that 80% of the workers' comp charges are in the general fund, and then how that is broken out in the general fund. So this is something that we just don't have any real leeway in. So we just need to increase the budget by $179,000 this year. So this one is an adjustment, not a roll forward. This is one that council was aware of. This was brought forward actually before the beginning of the year, just after the budget had actually been approved. And that was for the additional CSO position. And then after the budget, after the first of the year, there was also a reclassification of the police senior administrative assistant to confidential senior, from police administrative assistant to confidential senior administrative assistant. So this is what how those charges go, and you can see they are condensed into two funds. So this just accounts for those, and then it actually I snipped the organizational chart change, as this is the only change that is happening in the organizational chart for this amendment. Again, here's some more grouped, condensed by fund. So the staff distribution, this is what I mentioned when we were talking about the commercial rental fund. This reallocates, the majority of this reallocation is the public works staff for the facilities division. And then there is a reallocation of the IT GIS person when that position started. It was mainly street fund because they were setting up ViewWorks and doing that. And now it's reallocated better to better look at how their workload is. So These actually, this is one of the ones I condensed, so it doesn't take up a full slide. There's actually 30 different general ledger line items in here. So breaking it down and condensing it by fund, now we're down to 4 line items there. And the net change in ending fund balance citywide is 0 on this. We're just reallocating where the funds are going. But it does, as I mentioned, does affect that 005 fund, which is the general commercial fund, and increases that by $190,000. So this does reduce the staffing charges for stormwater and street fund, and a small increase to the general operating fund because they actually removed a lot of their staffing costs out of parks, because there was a lot of distribution to parks still for what they were doing, and that was all removed as well. And then the permit review, I mentioned this one as well. This is transfers in and out. And this is just, again, they're tracking their time and operational costs much better. So these are some minor operational amendments, small amendments to sort of larger dollar projects. The top one is for stormwater fees, and these are fees that we pay on city-owned parcels. Overall, we pay to our stormwater fund $110,000 for all of our city properties. And I did break that down by department and how those are expended. And as you can see, we have our park properties are our largest assessed value of properties, and so they have the largest amount of fees for stormwater. And then I do have the library and the sewer district on here. We do have the library leases that property from us. They pay their own stormwater, so they reimburse us for that. In the sewer, we have a number of lift stations, and the wastewater treatment plant, we actually own the property for those as well, and they reimburse us for that. And then the lower one, that is our WCIA rates. And this is for all of our liability insurance, our vehicle insurance, personal insurance for, I believe it's your police chief, your finance director, and there's one more maybe. And so the overall rates only increased by $3,400 more than we had actually budgeted, but it is 1.3 million citywide. So we did go through this year. Our risk manager got with WCIA and a couple of other insurance carriers, and we reviewed our coverages and carriers, and there is no recommendation to change carriers at this point. So I just wanted to add that we know this is a large dollar amount, and we have reviewed these. So here's some that are actually just grouped by project, as they only affect one fund, or there is a revenue and an expenditure. The top one, we're increasing the estimated utility tax revenues from up to the 510,000 for 2025. When we originally budgeted, we set a placeholder of 400,000. We're anticipating 510. And then also for that pavement program, we are adding money for equipment for the program coming out of that. And then the next one is for the comp plan and eds. This is rolling forward the grant funds as well as the expenditures to complete those programs. The police taser, this is just moving the expenditure from general fund to the equipment fund. So that's a net 0 change. Park equipment, moving the lease payment from the general fund to the new park equipment fund, again, net 0. And then the bottom 2 is for the Salmonoid Basin Comp Plan grant and expenditure. And this one is a multi-year grant funded program. So you will see that roll forward into 2026 as well. Going into capital, as I mentioned, just over $18 million. So the top ones are just looking at capital projects. I added in here the amount that we're actually amending, and then the total project. And you can see the bottom table, I have multiple funds, and so it's just by project. So I'll look at those in a minute. So the Public Works retainage release, that's all the revenues are accounted for. So this is just accounting for the expenditures in 2025. All of these are roll forward. So we're rolling forward the remaining budgets for the police building repair, as I mentioned, the property acquisition for Eagle Ridge and the park plan, Frontier Heights play structure relocation, rolling that money forward. 91st project, there was a delayed invoice, so we're rolling forward some budget for that, even though the project was completed. ADA improvement program, and then museum capital, Catherine Creek, and downtown regional stormwater pond. And I put in here what the total project costs are as well, just so you're aware that we're making sure that the projects are whole. And then the capital projects condensed by project, capital amendments condensed by project. So these are in multiple funds. So the 131st sewer extension, we're increasing the budget by 77,000 and the total project's 1.6, and that is in traffic mitigation and REIT 2. Bayview Connector, this is one of the ones where we overspent expectations in 2024. So we're just having to reconcile our 2025 budget. That one, we're amending 3 funds, pandemic recovery, park mitigation, and REIT 2. And then the Eagle Ridge capital project, that one we're amending the park, just the pandemic recovery fund, but it is in pandemic recovery and park mitigation funds. So we're only amending one of those budgets though. And then these are the group by project where we have some revenue and some expenditures. Again, I mentioned the Cedarwood. As you can see, the entire budget is the grant and the grant expenditure. This project is currently being reevaluated, and so it's on hold. Director Garceau is working through this project. Hartford, this was the Conservation Futures Grant. This is, we actually received the grant in 2025, so we need to budget for that receipt. And then the remaining expenditures on that are just under 71,000. And then the 24th, 91st, I mentioned this is in multiple funds, and we are working through that now. And then the Main Street, I put Main Street and the Main Street roundabout into one fund, just as they're similar to me. So we're rolling forward the grant revenues and reducing the expenditure slightly as we spent more last year. So this is just some additional budget considerations. These are not included in this budget amendment. So that's what's coming up: the non-commissioned guild agreement, the FTO memorandum, Sunset Park dock abutment. I know that one's going to be discussed. And then the Cavallaro Park staffing and operations. Now that we have consensus from council to go ahead and bring this back, I can add that into this budget. So you will look at it next week. Do I have any questions on that?
Could you go back to the first, never mind.
Anything for Barb? There's a lot.
The first one's always huge. It's rolling forward all the projects and all the revenues and all the operating things that it takes a really long time to put together too.
What took place at Sunset Park?
The abutment where the dock attaches to the abutment to the dock.
That's to the land.
You know what they do. It's settled down and it's done it significantly, so we need to go in and do a fix.
Significant?
It's moved, what, about 4 inches?
It has moved 5 inches. It has moved at a faster rate over the
Significant
past.
dollars.
few
I'm
months.
not.
Oh,
4 inches.
oh, you don't want that knowledge.
I want the truth.
What do we have, like, it's like 50,000, is that what you told me, Sarah?
I'm looking it up right now and I'll have an answer for you.
I think it's like 50,000.
Caitlin, can you close the rest of that shade?
This was a lot of information, Barb, but I appreciate your presentation and I like the color coding and the graphs, helps it all make it makes it make sense. So thank you.
$53,000. And in the meantime, we have installed a threshold over the gap to ensure that there is no risk of trips and falls.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
What's that?
Okay, jump in before we move on to the next item.
Yeah.
You puppy.
So that jogged my memory. I should have brought this up during council business. My apologies. We've had a request from Gene to revisit the budget subcommittee discussion. He would prefer to, as I understand it, prefer to be here for that. He's currently out of town. So I just wanted to double check with council that there was no issue not discussing that at our next meeting, but waiting until after that to make sure he can participate. So, and for me, the expectation would be, you know, and I think this is shared by the administrative side too, that we reach a decision on that, how we want to handle that going. Additional information. All right, this thing keeps disconnecting. Full council, or like I said, offloading some of that to the setup.
Okay, great. All right, anything else for Barb? Great, thanks Barb for your presentation. Let's move to 12B, traffic safety camera ordinance. And let's make sure, how long do we need for the executive session? We need 25 minutes for the total. Okay, so let's try to hold this traffic safety camera to say 10 minutes, Aaron?
Sure.
Kim?
Yes, no problem. All right. Thank you, Council and Mayor. My name is Kim Klinkers. I'm the city engineer. I'm here to just quickly overview the traffic safety camera ordinance that I think you've seen at least once or twice, so I can make it quick. Here's a quick overview slide that we can skim through. As a quick background, I have one slide here, but we did talk about the traffic safety camera program at the 2024 Fall Council Retreat, where we looked at some preliminary data for some of our parks and talked about the importance of vehicles traveling at slower speeds when we have vulnerable road users using the roadway and the sidewalks, specifically at parks and school zones. And then I think there was a draft ordinance presented to council on March 25th and then discussed further at the April 24th council retreat. This screenshot here was some of the workshop notes that just talked about if we wanted to move forward with a traffic camera program. It sounds like the decision was yes. And then we talked about what types of enforcement would you like to see. And option B was circled, which is the school walk zones with 24/7 enforcement at the posted speed and then at the 20 miles per hour speed when the lights are flashing. Another discussion topic was fines. What do we want the fines to look like? And there's a couple options there. I don't know if the consensus was reached at the retreat, but the ordinance that's in your council packet currently has provisions for a base fee of $145 for most violations. Specifically for the school speed zone cameras, it's set up for the base fee of $145. But then if there's repeat offenders or if there's a speed that exceeds 11 miles per hour over the posted school zone speed, the fine would be increased to double that, which is $290. And that's currently what's in the ordinance, and we're open for your feedback on that item. I just wanted to move forward and I have a couple slides here that summarize the draft ordinance that's in your packet. In general, the purpose is to add chapter 7.06 to the municipal code for the whole automatic traffic safety camera program. There's several RCWs that are based on that, and I think Greg's with us this evening if we have specific questions for him. You guys are well familiar with the approved locations that we could consider, including the school speed zones and the walk zones and the parks and some other locations. I know this is a lot of words here, but this is on page 3 of the draft ordinance. I just wanted to highlight the yellow sections here that you as a city council will help to prepare a required analysis of the final locations that are selected before we are able to add any traffic cameras at a new location or relocate existing cameras to new locations. The analysis that we need to complete must include equity and analyze the impact of where these cameras will be placed and consider livability, accessibility, economics, education, and environmental health. And then we also need to demonstrate a need that considers the travel by the vulnerable road users and have evidence of vehicles speeding and consider the rates of collision. So there's a lot of data and analysis that we need to analyze and compile before we select the specific locations throughout the city. But this is in the ordinance and one of the next steps. But the current step right now that we really need help advancing is approving this ordinance. So we're able to kick off the program and work through the process here. So as another summary slide that's included in this ordinance, as I just mentioned, we need council's assistance to pass the ordinance, and we're open to your feedback this evening on the draft that's included in your packet. As I mentioned, we'll complete an equity and crash analysis before we can place the signs. Also in the ordinance
on page 7 of 8, there's a section here that talks about council authorization. So once we complete the analysis, we'll come back to council and we'll ask for your authorization specifically to move forward with the placement and the plan of where the traffic cameras will go and what type of equipment we'll be using and how that program will be implemented. So it's lots of steps to this process. First process is the ordinance. We'll do the analysis. We'll come back to you, present the data, and that will really, the ordinance requires us to have the data to select the locations, and you'll be involved in that process as well. The ordinance also does talk about there's a minimum 30-day time period where we need to post advanced signage to notify our residents and users of the roadway about the traffic cameras going up. There's also language in here that talks about how the photos would be conducted and what would or would not be included, and the retention on the photos for the traffic safety cameras. We also do have requirements to complete annual reporting of the vendor and audits. And then the ordinance does overview the projected revenues and some restrictions about how they can be used for traffic safety improvements and the program costs. And then after 4 years, as we've touched on before, 25% of the additional revenue has to go to the state's Cooper Jones Fund. I think this is my last summary slide. So just quick summary about the infractions. They would be mailed to the vehicle owner within 14 days. Right now, we currently have $145 as the base fine, but as I mentioned, there's higher fines for major offenses and repeat offenders in school zones. There are provisions for reduced fines for low-income residents, and that's overviewed on page 6 of the ordinance. The effective date, if and when the ordinance is passed, would be 5 days after publication. The public hearing is optional, but we are interested to hear tonight if council would recommend having a public hearing just for transparency and public engagement before moving forward with this. And then in general, the oversight, city council must approve the final placement and operations of the traffic safety cameras once we've completed the analysis. So here's a quick flow chart of next steps. Would like to hear from you this evening if you'd like us to bring this to a public hearing to hear any public comment or testimony. And then we would like to hear any revisions or comments from council that we could include in the draft ordinance so we could move that forward. The next steps would be adopting the ordinance at a future meeting. We would complete the study of the locations with the different analyses as I touched on a little bit earlier. And then we'd execute a contract with a vendor or supplier to move forward with the program and bring that back to council before we would implement anything.
So, maybe you're going to answer my question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of verbiage in this ordinance, a lot of detail. Most all of the detail is, it's required by statute. If you're going to do this, this is the way you have to do this. As I mentioned at the retreat, there was a lot of angst and debate in the legislature as to whether to allow this. And there were a lot of compromises and put into the package that eventually got passed. So we don't have a lot of flexibility. Most of the flexibility is in location and where you might want to put it, but how we notice that's required, the traffic studies, what the traffic studies have to include, all that with the fines, all that is really detailed in the legislation, and we simply don't have a lot of flexibility with respect to what we do with that.
So I guess it's kind of a rudimentary question, but the part that seems confusing to me is that we pass an ordinance of any kind before we've conducted the studies and determined where we would even need the cameras. So I just want to make sure.
Well, I mean, that's, you do have that option. I mean, you could say, look, we want to see where we think we're going to put this, what our reasoning and rationale is at, before we go ahead and pass an ordinance, that's certainly within your prerogative to do.
I guess
Passing the ordinance first just sort of sets up the framework, and if you decide based on the studies, you don't want to put out any, and it's not worth it and so on and so forth, then you certainly don't have to authorize the location, but it sort of gets things moving, getting the ordinance passed first.
So some of the language in here, you're talking about like page 3, it talks about evaluating where analysis, where cameras can be located.
Yeah.
Environmental health is a consideration.
Yep.
That's the way it is?
Yes.
I mean, that's a requirement?
Yes,
Okay.
has to be addressed
Can you tell me what it is?
in the analysis. With the environmental analysis.
Health, yeah.
Health,
Placement of a camera, environmental health.
well, that's really not my bailiwick, but I'm sure there's some smart traffic engineers who have figured that with, other cities have done this. So I'm sure we'll take a look at their analysis, which passed muster, and we'll get some ideas about that.
The first thing that comes to my mind might be if there's a flash on the traffic cameras and if that's in close proximity to residential areas or if, yeah, the bright lights or the additional signage would cause
Sure.
environmental
Bright
stress.
Flashing lights,
Those are on police cars too.
yeah.
Slower cars, less burning oil. I mean,
They're on regular cars.
yeah.
That's true.
Okay. It doesn't say how much of a consideration that is with respect to that, so I'm sure, but I'm sure we won't be the first ones to do this, so we'll have a pretty good idea once we look at prior studies as to what we need to include.
I just would like to say that I think a public hearing is definitely something we should do. Speeding is I don't know that there's much about speeding when I hear from like Stevens citizens. It's gotten worse and worse and worse. And I know it's a big concern. So I definitely think a public hearing would be in order.
I would echo that. I would also ask, following up on your comments, that when we have a public hearing, that there's enough information given to the public so that there's an understanding about what sorts of things we have control over and we don't have control over. That there's an educational portion, whether it's just a, one pager or something that folks get. That I feel like we have the benefit of having had these conversations now multiple times for multiple hours. So we have all this information. If we're inviting the public to come and speak, they should have at the very least sort of an overview of the information we already have. So they're not arguing against things that we don't have any control over.
Good point.
Any other comments?
Sorry, Kim, can I see your timeline again really quick?
Surely. Let me hit the right share button. Sorry about that.
No worries.
There we go. And I think when we set up the project charter for this program, we were hopeful to try to have something up and running by maybe early 2026.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess just to Councilmember Jorstad's point, first thing we've got on there is public hearing, but then if we don't even conduct the study until 3 steps later, it just makes me wonder if it would be better to be armed with that information for why we've selected what we have. And because I know I've heard several comments, everybody thinks right next to them is the critical, speed area that needs to be addressed. And so if we were armed with that information, it could help educate, as Councilmember Dorset said, that might be helpful. But ultimately I defer to you on the project timeline, but that's just kind of my thinking, seeing this up there.
But statutorily, we're limited as far as where those can go. And if we communicate that, then the people like where I live, I can't say, even though people drive 100 miles an hour down Lundin Parkway, that's not an area that meets the criteria by statute. So that's not where we're going to put a camera, right? So.
Yeah, and I think it'd be helpful to be able to say why we are looking at the areas that we are.
So maybe just to give clear direction for staff, I can sort of summarize what I've heard. There's definitely a preference to go to a public hearing council. It's been an issue you've discussed for a long time. Some discussion now about the parameters of where the cameras are. We definitely want to communicate that out thoroughly to the public prior to the hearing. And the remaining question revolves around doing the traffic analysis, whether that should occur prior to going to public hearing as part of our public outreach, or if that procedurally can follow. So I'd like to get council's temperature on that to give clear direction to our city engineer.
Is there a clear reason we need to do the public hearing first in order to help identify spots to be studied, or do we already have a pretty good idea of that, right?
I think the public hearing option is just as we move forward with the draft ordinance, if we wanted to have community engagement and transparency, that's an option. It sounds like it's also an option for us to potentially move forward with a speed study and crash studies and identify specific locations that might be good targets for the traffic safety cameras. And then we could bring that back for additional
We could always have
consideration.
a second public hearing.
Well, I guess, what are we gonna say back? What information is gonna be put forth during the first public hearing when people come in? If we haven't done the study yet, we're just gonna tell them we're gonna do a study and we'll get back to you.
We could overview the objective of
I think
the.
we need to have as much information so that we can share with the public why we're doing this, where we're doing it, what our limitations are, why we're, picking the locations we are. I think that information is always a good thing, and there's a lot of assumptions. People are busy. They're not, sitting at city council meetings or listening online. So their information, they tend to get off social media, and it's not always correct. And so I agree, coming armed with information prior to the hearing, I think would be beneficial for everybody.
I think that the reason that we have people come to talk to us about an ordinance is to see what's in the ordinance and what we're planning on doing. That has nothing really to do where we're going to be placing the cameras and stuff, because the study hasn't been done yet. You can still pass the ordinance. People are going to understand what's in the ordinance because it's very specific from the state. And then they're going to know, yeah, we're going to look at these places that's the only places we can look. And then we're going to decide where we're going to go. And we'll have another discussion about those, maybe later, another open house on that. But I think passing the ordinance right away gets us going in the right direction. And we can still do that with everybody understanding what's in the ordinance. The ordinance doesn't have the location of the cameras in it.
No, but it has the criteria for
Criteria for
evaluating.
evaluating. So there you go. They all have that information.
I guess as long as we communicate that statutorily we are limited, it's not the council that made that decision, it's the legislature. Because just hearing the conversations around the 116th, 117th project, I think there was areas that we could have done a better job of communicating with the public. That maybe could have avoided some of the challenges that exist between the city and the residents.
So let me summarize. Why don't we do the ordinance adoption? We'll do the public hearing prior to the adoption. And then that way public has some say in what the ordinance says, kind of, sort of, depending upon if it's with the legal standing of the state. And then in parallel, and then after that, we'll do the study of the locations, come back a couple months later, do the actual locations study with you all, figure out where we're going to go, and then move forward after that.
Okay, so my understanding, we had data that showed the locations and the speeds at the areas, and that's what was presented to us. Hey, these are the areas where we're going to be doing that. Are we going to be doing additional studies?
So we've taken some more data from a couple other, mostly focusing just on the schools, not necessarily the parks. And I think that's what we're going to look at. That was the option B, right? Mostly the schools, right? So that will be the study locations that will come back as that school data.
And we have that third party that is doing that study,
Correct.
whatever that company is, that's
Yeah.
managing will be doing that.
So that's like a way forward in the next couple of weeks. Let's do a public hearing and look at an ordinance adoption. And then that'll give staff the guidance to get the study locations going. Give them a couple months to work that.
That's helpful.
Clear as
Yes.
mud?
Thank you. I appreciate you
All right,
guiding the
cool.
direction. Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else for us, Kim?
We have one more item on the
I
agenda.
know, we're gonna talk about all the eds in the communities. Let's talk about eds.
But I would like to introduce Whitney Ojoleta. She is our civil engineer in our engineering department, and she's super excited to give you a quick update.
Okay, well, that was going to be my introduction, but
Design standards.
good evening, council and mayor. As Kim mentioned, my name is Whitney Oileto. I am a civil engineer in the Public Works Department, and you probably haven't seen me since I was introduced a couple of years ago in August of 2022. So it's nice to see you all again.
We've felt your presence, Whitney.
Thank you. So I'll try to make this brief. If you could just bear with me. I am here tonight to provide information and notify the council about an update to our engineering, design, and development standards, which we refer to as the EDS for short. So a quick overview of the EDS for those who may not be familiar. It's a collection of engineering and construction specifications and standards for transportation related drainage and utility infrastructure in the city of Lake Stevens. Functionally, what the EDS really does for us as a city that's important is provide consistency and predictability. So whether it's a sidewalk, a road, a drain pipe, or a catch basin that's being constructed, that infrastructure will be the same or similar, or most importantly, it will provide the required level of service for that infrastructure type. This is important for the city so that regardless of the design engineer from one project to the next or who the builder is, we understand the infrastructure that is being dedicated to the public and can ensure that it will meet our long-term level of service and functionality and maintenance needs. So the EDS consists of 9 chapters or sections, which are listed here. We do anticipate that all 9 sections will receive an update this year in some way, shape, or form. And so why is an update to the EDS needed at this time? We are currently still working out of the 2009 EDS edition. This is the original publication. And it appears that when we originally adopted the EDS in 2009, we largely copied and pasted from the city of Marysville and maybe the Snohomish County EDS. In fact, there are still a few references to the city of Marysville sprinkled throughout our EDS. So the scope of changes that are needed range from just updating typos or old phone numbers to topics that should be clarified or rewritten to address inconsistencies or just provide better functionality. In some cases, also, we need to add a standard or a policy where maybe both the EDS and the code are silent. On the screen here is an example of this. This is a new sidewalk in a new residential neighborhood. And the sidewalk ends here, as you can see. And there's a critical area beyond this sidewalk. And when a sidewalk ends, whether it's temporary or permanent, it's important to provide access down from the sidewalk to the nearest pedestrian facility. In this case would be the road or the roadway shoulder. So it's a pretty quick fix. We just need a standard plan or draft a quick policy and probably add it to our construction checklist. But as that's just not a standard that we have right now, it's easy for it to get missed during plan review. The EDS update has been on the Public Works work plan for quite a while. It was assigned to me this year. And we have completed an internal coordination with our other departments and some identified stakeholders to draft kind of an initial wish list of all of the items in the EDS that we plan to update. We vetted and finalized that list, and now we plan to just go through them chapter by chapter this year. So what this process is going to look like, well, under the municipal code currently, all that it mentions about the EDS update process is that the city engineer can update the EDS. We just need to publish our proposed changes for a 10-day public comment period. This is the first time our department has done a substantial amendment to the EDS, and so we decided to model our process after the Snohomish County EDS update. It's pretty similar to what's listed here, except that since we are reviewing and updating all 9 sections of the EDS, we've opted to release updates 1 chapter at a time, just for ease of review for our stakeholders. The EDS is a 350 plus page document, so it would just be a lot for anyone to review all in one go. So after staff has a draft of each particular chapter ready for publication, we will send out a notice of proposed changes, and the draft will be attached both in track changes, and a clean version will be attached. We will also publish it on our EDS webpage. This will initiate the 10-day public comment period. This would also be the opportunity for council members to review the changes as well, if desired. During the public comment period, any formal requests or comments must be submitted in writing for review by the city engineer. And after review, we'll make any minor tweaks or clarifications based on the public comment that we receive. We'll put a final draft together, and then you'll receive a second email. This one will essentially be the notice of adoption. The final draft will be attached, and then we'll rinse and repeat for the rest of the chapters. We do plan to go mostly chronologically, so we'll start with chapter 1. There might be a couple chapters based on priority that we do out of order. But we do anticipate sending out chapter 1 for review soon, potentially by next week. And then there's one final note here. As you may already be aware of, there is a Title 14 code update underway. And so we are coordinating with planning to ensure that we have an effective approach to updating related topics and shared requirements, specifically for Chapter 1456, which is the Streets and Sidewalks Code. So finally, to support the project, we have published an EDS webpage. This is just a one-stop shop for information about the EDS. You can download the current version of the EDS. And if anyone from the public has any substantial changes that they would like us to review ahead of, chapters 2 through 9, you can feel free to submit those comments in writing. We have also an EDS comment and change request form you could fill out and send to the engineering email that's posted there. There's also an option to subscribe to our email notification list, so you can receive the EDS update straight to your inbox if desired. And that's
Very good
all I've
stuff.
got. Any questions?
Good stuff, Whitney. What are questions we have?
What's your outreach to the development community?
So we do have, on the next slide, this is the draft communications matrix that was adopted with our project charter. So we identified some key stakeholders, and the list includes some of our, frequent developers, and also the Master Builders Association. And so they will be on our distribution list from the get-go, and anyone that would like to sign up to receive the notifications can do so using the feature on our EDS webpage, or reach out to us.
What about AGC?
I don't know if they're on our list, but we can add them.
What is that?
Associated General Contractors. I mean, a lot of this stuff does get in the commercial. It's not just residential. The only organization I see up there is Master Builders. And that's primarily residential, so.
Yeah, we did reach out to, Yeah, we reached out to Snohomish County and requested their email distribution list, just as a gut check for a starting point for us to, review who they currently have on their list and, have something similar for our initial outreach.
Okay. Russ, maybe you could help me. There used to be a group of engineers, I forget what they're called, but they used to meet, all the engineers. What was that?
I don't recall. What I can say is you've heard about the coordination our teams are having. At some point, we will be having an open house with the streets section, and we're hoping to have, do that in tandem with the EDS for streets and some of those design elements as well. And I know that our list of people is probably a little bit broader than this list of
Okay.
like real estate, organizations, as well as some environmental organizations to get a blend of opinions and thoughts.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, we're gonna need a motion to extend.
Roger.
Okay.
Any other questions for Whitney?
Thank you.
Great job, Whitney. Good luck.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a couple months. All right, great. We're gonna go, our next item on the agenda is executive session. So we're talking 25 minutes. We have two different items on that, collective bargaining. There's action expected to follow from that. And then the second is potential litigation with no action to follow on that. So we're gonna have to extend the meeting by 25 minutes to do 25 minutes worth of executive session. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we're gonna go into executive session. We'll clear the room and we will have action to follow on one of the items. We'll be back at 8:25.
All right. We're
We back live?
Yep.
All right, we are back from executive session and we have a motion to present.
I move to approve the city administrator to sign the settlement agreement and release between the city Teamsters Local Union 763 and Kyle Young.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
Sorry, who was the second, Ryan?
Ryan? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed?
Aye.
There was
Gary?
one opposed? Okay,
Gary's opposed. Okay.
excellent. And with that, motion passes. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
No,
Move to adjourn.
nah.
Second.
And we